There we were. Bad company.
Battlefield Bad Company 2. I know what it is, you know what it is. It's the game that launched the franchise into new heights and establishes Call of Duty's only viable competitor. Don't get me wrong, it's not like Battlefield was an obscure underground series beforehand, but Bad Company 2 introduced a whole new legion of gamers to the world of maximalist combined arms warfare. Set in an alternate version of the modern era, where Russia's defense budget went to weapons training rather than oligarch hedge funds, you take on the role of a member of Bad Company, the world's coolest cannon fodder who must engage in a campaign of destruction and defense of the great and beautiful. I got a lot of nostalgia for this game, and I'm willing to bet that a lot of other people do as well. So let's take a look at one of the 360 era's most beloved classics and remember what we loved about. Get out those notebooks and ready those pencils for notes, cause it's time for the history lesson. Bad Company 2 is, as the name would imply, the second game in the Bad Company subseries. Coming out 2 years after the original, Bad Company 2 is a loose narrative follow-up to that game. In order to understand why Bad Company 2 was so important for the franchise, and what makes it so unique, we have to look back at the Battlefield series leading up to it. By 2008, Battlefield had established itself as the premier military-themed shooter on the PC. Beginning in 2002 with Battlefield 1942, the franchise was unique for its massive 64-player battles that combined infantry, armor, air, and naval combat into a tightly crafted multiplayer experience that spanned various theaters of World War II. In the wake of its success, it was followed by a series of increasingly popular sequels that covered different eras of warfare, from Vietnam to modern day and into the far future. Over this period, it amassed a loyal fanbase that was enthralled by its sandbox gameplay and dynamic battles that allowed for players to create their own stories amidst the chaos of virtual warfare. All of this was well and good, but the people at DICE and EA were aware that although the series was proving popular, they were missing out on a huge market: the console player base. Trying to translate the Battlefield experience to consoles proved to be challenging. At the time, most home systems couldn't come close to matching the capabilities of the latest computer builds, something the franchise was relying on to create its large-scale warfare experience. An early experiment was a spin-off that attempted to port a condensed version of the Battlefield 2 experience to Xbox 360. Developed in tandem with the PC game as an independent experience, it attempted to recreate the series' gameplay loop at a smaller scale that the 360 could handle. While reviews were favorable and players enjoyed it, it didn't firmly establish the franchise on the consoles the way that the studio was hoping for. Shortly after, development began on a completely original title that was built from the ground up not just for consoles, but to be a unique experience altogether. In 2008, Battlefield Bad Company was released. Dropping exclusively for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 with no PC release at all, the title aimed at providing warfare at as large a scale that the consoles could handle, as well as a narrative experience in the form of a single-player campaign. Set in an unspecified year in the contemporary era, Bad Company focused on a squad of US Army soldiers who were part of the titular unit. Within the story, Bad Company serves as a kind of a dumping ground for soldiers who haven't done anything bad enough to be court-martialed, but have nonetheless proven incapable of fitting into the military's general populace. In the first game, the main characters, a team consisting of Haggard, a redneck pyromaniac, Sweetwater, a nerdy New Jersey native, Redford, the squad leader and father figure of the group, and Marlowe, the straight man and player character, go AWOL during a war in Europe so they can search for a legendary stash of mercenary gold. Unlike Call of Duty 4, which primarily took inspiration from stuff like Black Hawk Down and Behind Enemy Lines, Bad Company was more indebted to films like Three Kings and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Praised for its humor, originality, likable characters, open-ended gameplay, as well as the addictive multiplayer mode that many, myself very much included, sank hours upon hours into, DICE was finally able to establish the console player base that they were hoping for. As such, a sequel was all but guaranteed. After a smaller World War II themed title was released to consoles as a digital-only title, Bad Company 2 was released in 2010 to PC, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360 to a level of hype that had previously been unheard of for the series. In the months leading up to Bad Company 2's release, DICE launched a marketing campaign that highlighted many of its unique aspects, from the story mode's humor and characters to the multiplayer's revolutionary Destruction 2.0 system that built upon the destructible environments present in the original, allowing for multiplayer maps that could be completely leveled by the end of a match. Alongside winning over fans who had already loved the first game, it also won over new players who were unfamiliar with the series, as well as attracting the attention of PC players, the original fanbase that had been left out of the first Bad Company's release and were wary of the game's lower player count. In early 2010, an open beta was launched that allowed anyone with a console and internet connection the opportunity to try the game out for themselves. This proved to be a blessing for the game, as it also caught the attention of the many fans of Call of Duty who were disgruntled with the state of Modern Warfare 2. In the March month of the year 2010, Bad Company 2 was released to record sales for the franchise and glowing critical and player reception. Players were in love with the game's large-scale combat and memorable story mode. As per usual, this video will be focusing on the solo side of things, as I'm sure there's already 1,000 videos about the multiplayer. Also, quick PSA, if you want to take a trip down memory lane, the game's servers are going offline in December, so hurry your ass up and start blowing up MCOM stations while you've still got the chance. So, a funny little thing. When I first played the story mode for this game all those years ago, it was on the PS3, which was a pretty stable version of the game that ran really well. For this video, however, I played the game's PC port, which also ran pretty well, but had a few weird bugs, like this part in the first mission when I was given a gun by a poltergeist. I'm not sure if that's a widespread issue people had or if it's something unique to my version of the game, but either way, it made for some funny moments. Now, the story setup, as stated earlier, is that Russia is on a rockin' world tour of conquest, and the only remaining nation that's standing up to them is the good old Stars and Stripes. While the specifics of the geopolitical situation is never elaborated upon, it's heavily implied that the war is going very poorly for the United States. Most of our allies have been taken over, Russia is rapidly conquering our neighbors to the south, and they've already invaded Alaska. On top of this, the US Army is apparently experiencing a shortage of both manpower and supplies. Soldiers are defecting to the Russian side, Bad Company has been upgraded from cannon fodder to mainline unit out of desperation, and they've even started fielding failed prototype weapons as replacement assault rifles to the troops. It could also be that the XM8 is here because the devs thought it looked cool and futuristic and that's all there is to it, but it's a cool bit of speculation to put in the video, so it stays. Picking up an unspecified amount of time after the original, the mercenary gold the main character secured at the end of the original has been confiscated by the government and our boys have been drafted back into the military. As the war grows increasingly dire for the US, Bad Company is sent into Russian territory to secure intelligence relating to a Russian weapons project. Said weapons project is the continuation of a program that was researched by the Japanese during World War II. In the game's prologue mission, you play as a Marine commando during the final days of that conflict, who is sent with a squad to a Pacific island to rescue a Japanese defector who has knowledge of the program. This mission, which also serves as an excuse to show off how cool a single player for 1943 could have been, ends in disaster when the Japanese forces on the island activate the weapon, shutting down all electronics and causing a massive tidal wave which drowns the squad and scientist. Returning to the present day, the mission of Bad Company also ends in failure when the agent they're supposed to meet is killed by a Russian commander named Kirilenko, who you can tell is evil due to his thick Eastern European accent and bald head, and the prototype they secure turns out to be a fake. The boys then get promoted from the Five Finger Death Punch fan club into the Special Activities Division and immediately begin to partake in the time-honored CIA tradition of doing shady shit in South America. In Bolivia, the squad is tasked to meet up with an undercover contact named Aguirre, which I think is a reference to that Werner Herzog movie, but I'm not sure. After killing a militia made up of the survivors from the story mode of Ghost Recon Wildlands, they rescue A-Dog from the Ruskies and get access to his Battle.net account. Much to their dismay, however, they discover that the Russian military has not only obtained satellite coordinates leading to a location that could contain secrets pertaining to the Japanese weapon program, they also stole all of Aguirre's COD points, meaning he won't be able to get the spawn skin before the new season starts. Allying themselves with a hippie helicopter pilot and staunch third-party voter named Flynn, they fly to the Andes and DDoS a fucking government satellite, causing it to come crashing down onto a village that's hopefully abandoned, but if not, whatever, those civilians were coming right at us. Marlowe secures the hard drive box thing from the satellite, but is separated from the rest of the squad. After traversing a frozen landscape, fighting off exposure in the form of a gameplay mechanic that I'm genuinely curious if anyone's ever died to, he's reunited with the squad and goes to their next destination. In either Chile or Argentina, I can't remember which, you and the team take part in a Marine-led assault on a Russian-held village. Using airstrikes to blow it all to shit, you hop into a jeep that's part of a convoy penetrating deeper into the valley. In this mission, you get to listen to a barrage of military jargon that is basically incomprehensible to a normal person.
Command, this is Bravo 28 Alpha Alpine Actual. We're taking semi-effective fire from a fortified position 3 Clax during 9:40 p.m., requesting prompt JDAMs to persecute with authority so we can get on to the objective. How copy, Wilco, Johnny Bravo, over. Roger that, Bravo 28. This is Skeletor the Overlord 25, getting ready to drop a King Arthur in a pan on those magic mics north of your position. Be advised, payload is danger bad near your 612. Seek cover and record videos to post to the military subreddit, over 96 and out. Bravo 28, this is Agent Arms Dealer Deluxe, requesting assistance with the secure and extract mission on a VIP PHDO GMC located at site Whiskey Bourbon Coors Light Tango. How copy that for an request, over. Agent Arms Dealer Deluxe, this is Bravo 28 Alpha Alpine Actual.
No. Though Marlowe once again misses his chance to cap Kirilenko, they get intel on the location of an abandoned cargo ship containing a sample of the weapon. Said cargo ship is located in the desert, where you can't remember your name, for there ain't no one to give you 800 Microsoft points to change it. Traversing this vast sea of sand, you drop your friends off at computer stations where they help you pinpoint the exact location of the ship.
Okay. What's one of these buttons here? That. I knew I should have taken that adult education course. Maybe I'd even know PowerPoint too. There. All right, now get a move on. I got it from here.
You get the sample, as well as a document that states the US government deliberately sent the squad in the prologue on a suicide mission, like the one for Mass Effect 2, except they didn't upgrade the Normandy so they all died. This was done to test the weapon's capabilities in a live-fire combat environment. After relaying this information to Aguirre, the squad goes back to Bolivia, but they get shot down separated. You meet up with Sweetwater, who gives you a 50 cal so you can do some sick-ass trick shots on these punks that try to fight you. You rendezvous with Haggard and Redford and commence with the mission to rescue Flynn from enemy forces. During the battle through the POW camp, the game also glitched out and turned my rifle into a snub-nose, which only made me feel more powerful. You rescue Flynn, who proceeds to shoot a guy trying to knife you before he delivers the most badass line in video game history.
I thought you were a pacifist. Sometimes even the Buddha had to kick a little ass.
On Rail's turret section, you're back to Aguirre, who turns out to be an asshole who betrayed you to the Russians. He reveals that the dude you played as in the intro was his pop, so when he found the military deliberately sent him to die, he gets a bit angry and gives the prototype to Russia. Now you may be thinking that this is a little contrived, and you'd be right, but it doesn't really matter because Kirilenko immediately shoots Aguirre. He's about to execute you too, but Flynn shows up and unleashes hell before some random enemy soldiers shoots him down with an RPG before presumably posting the clip to YouTube. You and your squad mates escape and make your way to a nearby city that is the site of a raging battle between enemy forces and the rest of the army. Kirilenko sets off the weapon, detonating an EMP blast which knocks out all tech in the area and brings the battle grinding to a halt. One pep talk later and you fight your way to the plane, where you sneak on board, kill a shit ton of people, and confront Kirilenko. He mocks you and says that the only way into his chamber is to blow it open, something that only a suicidal fool would try to do on an airplane. Shoot the weapon, jump off the plane, shoot Kirilenko, land in Texas, celebrate that the war's over and you won. General shows up and says the war's not over because the Russians are invading. Get in the Jeep, back to work, Frank. Congratulations, you've unlocked a cliffhanger ending that still hasn't been resolved 13 years later. I'm used to that sort of thing, so I don't mind that much. That may be the end of the game, but that's not the end of this video, because there's a huge topic I want to cover regarding the series. In 2014, developer at DICE, the company that makes Battlefield, said that although they hope to make a Bad Company 3 someday, it's not on the docket because they're unsure of what people like about these games so much. Now, the obvious answer is to let him know that Google exists and he can just look up reviews for the game, but I guess I can kind of understand what he's saying. The video game community is a fickle beast. Shit that they love in one game, they hate in another. It can often be very volatile and is constantly seeking the next big failure that it can drag through the mud and meme about for years to come. I can't tell you what everyone else liked about Bad Company 2, but I can tell you what I liked about it. Starting with the single player, the biggest thing is the characters. Bad Company is essentially an underdog story that stands in stark contrast with the narratives presented in Call of Duty. Unlike Task Force 141, the guys in Bad Company aren't Spec Ops badasses, they're grunts. Goofballs and misfits who don't really have a plan and are mostly just making it up as they go along. Everything they say and do in the story reflects this, whether it be Haggard's love of destruction for the sake of it, Sweetwater's almost childish fantasy of being a super spy, Marlowe's sense of uncertainty and wariness, or Redford's simple wish to just retire and go home. They may have military training, and they do have cool moments in the story, but you get the feeling that they're as impressed with these scenes as you are. I think the moment that perfectly illustrates this dichotomy is this scene in particular. There's a lack of confidence in Redford's voice, no heroic attitude or anything like that, just a shrug and a, I guess this is the best course of action. It's really unique and unusual for this type of game.
Well, anyway, I don't think we can knock that thing down. So who wants to hijack a plane?
In many ways, the later Battlefield campaigns became the very thing that Bad Company 2 was parodying, that hyper-patriotic, pro-Western narrative of heroic American or British soldiers committing superhuman feats of warfare in order to save the day. These guys don't really have any idea what they're doing. They're in way over their heads, but they know what's right, and they're going to do everything they can to make it count. Aside from the story, the gameplay was also cool too, with the open-ended sandbox-style level design that puts the destructible environments to great use. On the multiplayer side of things, I love the simplicity of it. No overcomplicated interface where you're asked to put a billion attachments on your gun, customize your specialist, or whatever other bullshit gimmick they've introduced. Pick a gun, put a sight on it if you want, pick a gadget, and go blow shit up. The system is easy, readable, and geared towards having you spend as much time in the game as possible. Also, the classes. Battlefield has been stuck on the 4-class system for ages now, and I doubt they're ever going to reintroduce any more at this point. One of the things that's been lost with this system over the years, and nearly outright deleted in 2042, is the distinction between these 4 classes. In Bad Company 2, each one was built around a specific playstyle and role on the battlefield. As the series went on though, everything got more and more homogenized, with each class becoming less unique and more capable of doing everything. The stated goal of this was to encourage player expression, but it kind of had the opposite effect. All the players in a match just kind of mushed together now. I remember in the old days, this distinction between the classes bred what could almost be described as sub-communities within the player base, and the unique and specialized nature of each created this symbiotic relationship between them. Vehicles were powerful but not oppressive, maps were designed around either conquest or rush, leading them to be very tightly designed, and the overall presentation seemed to value visual clarity and aesthetic appeal over a commitment to pornographic levels of realism. All in all, Bad Company 2 is a fun trip down memory lane. It's a relic of an age when shooters were just a little simpler, but still had a deep enough level of customization that could accommodate a variety of different playstyles. There's a level of purity to games like this, a focus of vision that's seldom found in the bloated, investor appeal-driven entries we've seen in the entries that have dominated this franchise and a few others in the years since. I don't know if there'll ever be a new Bad Company game, and if there is, I have no idea if DICE would be able to capture the magic that made the first 2 work so well, but I think that's okay, because we'll always have the memories from this game as well as the memories we continue to create with newer ones. Nostalgia can be cathartic, but it's important not to get lost in it, because if we do, we might end up missing the next Bad Company game without even realizing it. Hopefully DICE can figure out what people liked about this game. They don't need to recreate it or even come close to matching it, but they can make new games that we'll all remember down the road as well. Hey everybody, if you made it this far into the video, I just want to say thanks. It means a whole lot. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all your standard YouTube outro stuff that you always hear. And other than that, I'll see y'all in the next video. Goodbye.